2023. If you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Alderman Osteen?
Here.
Alderman Rose?
Here.
Alderman Ross?
Here.
Alderman Rucker?
Here.
Alderman Schuman?
Here.
Alderman Hoffman?
Here.
Mayor Parkinson?
Here. All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to start out with the citizens' communications. This is a time set aside on the agenda for citizens and visitors to address the mayor and board on any topic that is not a public hearing. For those here in person, speakers will be restricted to 3 minutes unless otherwise permitted. Minutes may not be donated or transferred from one speaker to another. Visitors attending via online will be in listen-only mode. Any questions or comments for the mayor and board may be sent to the city clerk at tberreth@osagebeach.org no later than 10 a.m. on the board meeting day, the first and third Thursday of each month. Submitted questions and comments may be read during the citizens communications section of the agenda. Someday I'll memorize that. The Board of Aldermen will not take any action on any item not listed on the agenda, nor will it respond to questions, although staff may be directed to respond at a later time. The Mayor and Board of Aldermen welcome and value input and feedback from the public. Is there anyone here in person who would like to address the board? If so, come on up and sign in. All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Has everybody on the board had a chance to review the minutes and the bills list? And if we don't have any comments or questions, do I have approval to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Alderman Rose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Schuman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda passes. All right, we're going to move on to our first item of business. This is bill number 23-27. It's an ordinance of the city of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a 3-year janitorial service contract with Lake Clean Oceans LLC for an amount not to exceed $68,000. This is a second reading. Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. At Alderman Rucker's request, we had added this to the agenda just so that we could kind of kill this because the vendor in this case was unable to fulfill the obligation of this contract. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
If we don't have any questions, failure to provide a motion will make this die. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. The correct way, according to the attorney, is to have a motion to approve the item, have a second, and then my intent is to vote no. It's the cleanest way to take care of this ordinance. I visited with the attorney before he went on vacation.
Okay, very good.
Second.
Very good. All right. All those in favor?
I have to roll call.
Roll call, I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
Alderman Osteen?
No.
Alderman Rose?
No.
Alderman Ross?
No.
Alderman Rucker?
No.
Alderman Schuman?
No.
Alderman Hoffman?
No.
All right. The motion is not carried. It dies. Thank you for the education, Alderman Rucker. All right, next we're going to move on to Bill 23-39 is an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 210, Offensive Section 210.1800, Possession of Marijuana, Section 210.1810, Possession of Controlled Substance, Section 210.18130, Unlawful Possession of Drug Paraphernalia, and creating a new Section 210.188, Hashish and Synthetic Cannabinoids in the City Code for various purposes as set forth. This is the second reading. Gina, are you going to take this one?
Sure. Mayor and members of the board, the first reading was read and approved at the last meeting on June 1st. This ordinance basically is the updates needed due to legislative changes. At that time, Cole did not receive any questions. I'll happy to attempt to answer any questions on behalf of Cole, but this is the second reading.
All right, any further comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Rucker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman. Roll call, please.
Alderman Morose,
Yes.
Alderman Ross,
Yes.
Alderman Rucker,
Yes.
Alderman Schuman,
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman,
Yes.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Next, we have Bill 23-47, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, approving a development agreement and a cooperation and transportation project agreement in connection with the Lakeport Village Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan. This is the second reading. And Gina, you want to take it?
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. Mark Speckerman is with us here tonight, and he's got a couple additional questions. The first reading, or additional clarification, sorry. The first reading was read and approved at the last meeting. There are some minor changes to this based on comments at the last meeting. I do believe the correct copy did get put in here, but he is bringing up the changes on the screen should you have questions, and he'll go over those.
All right, good evening, Mr. Spikeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Gina. As you may recall from last meeting, there were a few suggestions from the board. We've tried to incorporate those, and this will only take just a couple minutes because there's only a few of them. The first one you see is simply some cleanup in the very introduction of the agreement. As you recall, we have 4 ordinances. We call them the 4 horsemen. One is the creation of the CID. That's not before you tonight, that got delayed while they were correcting a legal description. So we just had to edit a recital to make clear that the CID would be created at a later date. And then if you go down to the definition of TDD revenues at the top of page 9.
Let me follow you so I can tell them their page numbers.
Okay.
690452.
Page 9 is at the bottom of the sheet. Isn't it?
Okay, they are.
Yeah. We
I know
got,
we renumber, so.
we
I
got all
wasn't
kinds of page numbers
sure.
on there.
Okay.
As you may recall, there was discussion about what would happen if the parking garage charged fees for parking. This definition says that if there are fees, and you'll see later on a change we made said there won't be fees unless the city says there will be. But if there are fees, they'll go to pay to bonds. Next up is the definition of work, which is at the top of page 10, well, bottom of page 9, carry over to top of page 10. We've clarified that it will be a retractable roof water park, not an indoor or retractable roof, just retractable.
What page are we at, Mark?
On
Page 10?
It's the definition of work. On my screen anyway, it's the,
Okay, I got it. It's on page 9, not 10.
yeah, it starts at the bottom of 9, and then the very end of that definition,
Ours
letter
is all on
D,
10.
refers to the water park.
Okay.
And then if you go down to 3.10C, which is on, at least on my screen, page 15.
Page 14. No, page 15 on ours.
Yep. There had been discussion about, we had a number of days that the water park and the amusement uses had to be open. The question was whether that would be, condensed into the warmer months or whether it would be spread around. There's now a reference that they have to conform with the seasonality report that the developer will provide. We've seen a draft of that. That report right now contemplates that the Sky Wheel will be open year-round. The restaurants, the shops will be open year-round. Some of the other amusement uses will be closed or have limited usage during January or February, but otherwise be open at least weekends in other months. And the developer, as you may recall, did state that many of the amusement uses just had to be closed for a couple weeks for cleaning and maintenance during those months as well.
Mr. Mayor, does that say in there that it's going to be open every single weekend? Or do they have the option to close it for a weekend if they need to, or?
I mean, if they ever need to close it for a reason because of inclement weather or, maintenance issues, safety issues, that they of course can close it for that. But they need to provide the seasonality report and stick with it.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll see in the text we've added, it does recognize that maintenance, cleaning, weather conditions, perhaps there's a convention or something that rents out the whole thing.
I'm just trying to make sure that they just don't decide to close it down all of February. That's all.
Yep. And then if you go down to 310E, just a couple paragraphs below, the last change here just goes back to that parking garage, and this is where it says that parking garage will be maintained as free parking for visitors of the amusement uses. Notwithstanding that, they can charge for hotels, and only if the city consents to parking fees for the amusement uses, the revenues go to, they'll cover some operational costs, and then any remainder will go to the bonds. And that's it. Those are the only changes.
All right.
Happy to
Comments?
answer any questions.
Comments or questions from the board? Alderman Osteen.
I've got some questions regarding 310D. This is in reference to the boat slips. I'm just curious on how it's basically a double entendre. They're stating that the dock spaces are free of cost for public use, but the hotel may still charge for use of them. I'm not sure how, or at least that's how it reads to me.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how you'd be able to differentiate between
well, there's no.
who's using the slips or not, or whether the hotel
If
guests or
someone's
not.
going to be there overnight, they're going to be a hotel guest. And presumably if the hotel could choose to charge them for that, they would know if the boat's there overnight. And they would know who's checked in.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example, which this happens at any
Yeah.
waterfront bar. Somebody drives by boat to a waterfront bar, they've had a little too much to drink, they take an Uber home, their boat stays there overnight. You're automatically going to assume that that's a hotel guest, so therefore there's going to be a charge involved. I'm just curious, once again, how you're going to enforce that, differentiate, et cetera.
Well, I imagine the hotel guest would register their boat with some sort of identification, and that someone could go and say, okay, we've got, this boat doesn't match our identification, so we can remove it or fine it or whatever needs to be done to prevent that sort of
Okay.
overnight.
Just throwing out some examples that we've
Yeah.
all seen at bars
Yep.
where
Yeah.
people, once
Definitely.
again, have imbibed a little too much, but once again, their boat stays overnight,
Yep.
doesn't mean that they are a guest of the hotel.
That is correct. And then the city attorney had brought up a scenario too where, there may be special events happening on the lake and it might be appropriate to charge, a fee that like 4th of July fireworks or something. Concerts at the entertainment venues.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
Do we need to approve the second reading, or do we need to approve the
Yes,
correct, the
I would
changes first,
suggest-
and then do a motion to approve the second reading?
Yes, I would suggest a motion to amend the bill by swapping out Exhibit A with the new Exhibit A. Exhibit A is the redevelopment agreement that includes the changes I just went over.
Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to
What he said.
make the changes as was presented
Yes.
to us.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I believe that can be just all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, with that being said, do I have a motion to approve the second reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Schuman, roll call, please.
Alderman Morose?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Rucker?
Yes.
Alderman Schuman?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen?
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Next, we move on to Bill 23-48, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the expenditure of funds for promotional efforts to support the Lake of the Ozarks Bike Fest 2023 event support request in an amount not to exceed $3,000. Second reading. Gina, would you like to take this one too?
Sure. Mayor, members of the board, first reading was read and approved at the last meeting on June 1st. At that time, Heather Brown was here to explain and to answer questions. The application at that time was presented for the board. Their request is for $3,000. I'll entertain any further questions.
Any other comments or questions, board? Alderman Osteen.
This one's for Gina. Going back to our budgeting for these type of items, this is kind of maybe not necessarily of record here, but when we set the budget, do we basically look at the continuing requests, or do we ever put in any allotments for an additional requests for any new events, et cetera? Because when I
Really,
remember correctly, the
yes
last
and
few years,
yes.
it's been the same amount based on previous years.
Yes and yes. The board upped this particular line item to 13,000 2 years ago. It was historically around 10,000 for a
Right.
while.
Okay.
So it really is at your discretion at budget time based on previous. Now, this is our first request this year, which is a little, slower. We had a few other ones. I suspect a few fall events will still come through, but basically it's your discretion at budget time.
That's all. I know this is a recurring event. I'm just
Yep.
curious if we
Yeah.
had more money
Kinda
into this
based
part
on
of the budget
history, but,
for
yeah.
new events. All right. That's all. Thank
All
you.
right, any other questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Rose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman, roll call, please.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Schuman.
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
All right, second reading carries. Next, we move on to Bill 23-51. It's an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with Elks Lodge number 2517 for the construction and maintenance of a new Veterans Memorial to be built in the roundabout in front of City Hall. This is the second reading. Assistant City Administrator Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. I was not here at the last meeting, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this.
Any more comments or questions?
Am I the only?
Do you have something, Alderman?
All in
Osteen?
one tonight?
All
Yes.
right.
Nowhere in the budgets or in this proposal for either the Elks or for the city do I see the installment or maintenance of a crosswalk to the roundabout or pedestrian crossing signs, et cetera. Since that is part of a driving area, wouldn't that have to be installed?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question. I can talk to Ron after the meeting, talk to the chief, and see if that's something that is necessary. Obviously, we make our own signs, so it's certainly not a big deal if we need to add that. We also have
It seemed to me, since that's in the middle of a driving or a traffic area, that we would have to have some type of designated crosswalk, pedestrian crossing signs, something of that nature. And once again, I don't see anything regarding that in these proposals.
Is it still in the traffic
Gary?
circle? It's still in the circle out here?
Yeah.
No, it's private property. You don't have to have a crosswalk for something like that. If that was the case, then you would have to have a crosswalk for people who parked on the other side to walk across to the building side. On private property, crosswalks are not required. Now, and of course, I don't know where we would put them because they could come to see it from all sides. So, I mean, if it's something we want to discuss, we can, but it's certainly not required.
Wouldn't it seem for liability purposes, though, we would want to have something that states pedestrian crossing or something of that nature?
I can certainly
Just
look
thinking
into
out
it. We
loud,
can
folks.
contact our insurance and see what they think. But yes, sir, we can do some research on that.
All right. Anyone else? Alderman
question.
Hoffman.
I'm just curious how you got to the figure of $142,000. Is there any kind of design? Is there any proposed design for it? Has this been opened up to the public for design possibilities?
The design was presented to the board at the budget meetings last October, November, sir. Since you weren't there, if you would like to contact me after the meeting, I'd be happy to share that information with you.
So is the design done, like they already know what?
Yeah, the project, after the first reading completed, the project was put out to bid.
And then we've got the, yeah, and then we've got the breakdown in there too.
Okay. That's good enough for me. That's all I needed. Thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, the motion approved second reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Osteen, roll call, please.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Schuman.
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
All right, second reading carries. Last part of unfinished business, we have Bill 23-54, an ordinance authorizing the City of Osage Beach, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial revenue bonds, Lakeport Village Project, Series 2023, in a principal amount not to exceed $360 million for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of acquiring, constructing, and improving a facility for an industrial development project in the city. approving a plan for the project and authorizing the city to enter into certain agreements and take certain other actions in connection therewith. This is the second reading. City Administrator Gina Woods, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board, this was also read and approved on the first reading at the last meeting, June 1st. Mark Spikerman is, I think, maybe still here. If you have further questions on that, this is the necessary step to facilitate the sales tax exemption, which is your Chapter 100.
Comments or questions from the board? Alderman Hoffman.
I just want to know where we're at with the school.
What's school got to do with it?
I know
This is
that
the
when
time.
I thought this was the time to ask.
Well, this isn't, Chapter 100 isn't anything with the tax increment of the sales tax. This is for them to have.
Well, I wasn't sure when the next opportunity was for Mr. Tacketoff to come up. Is there another time in here that's more appropriate?
To the mayor.
Well, it's up to you, but that would have been in the other ordinance we just passed, but, yeah, so.
Do you mind fielding a question, sir?
Yeah, we haven't completed a deal with the school yet, but, you know, there's been continued, you know, discussions.
I just wondered if there had been any kind of deal reached, so.
No deal reached
Okay.
yet.
That's all I needed. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? Alderman Osteen.
So by approving this, we're not necessarily still approving the final package for the TIF financing, correct?
Well, this is not the redevelopment plan or redevelopment agreement. This is not the contractual agreement between the city and the developer. This is the Chapter 100 authorization to allow them to use the sales tax for the building materials.
Okay, I just want to
Mark,
clarify
did I
that.
answer that correctly? Okay.
Just want to clear that for the board and for the public,
Yeah.
All right,
since this has
Correct.
been quite a bit of debate in the public about this development, so.
any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading? Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Alderman Rucker. All right, all those, roll call, please.
Alderman Schuman,
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman,
Yes.
Alderman Osteen,
Yes.
Alderman Morose,
Yes.
Alderman Ross,
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
All right, second reading carries. Now on to new business. This is, first we have a presentation, the city's fiscal year 2022 annual comprehensive financial report. City Treasurer Carrie Bell, please.
Yes, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. Tim Fitzgerald is here this evening to present the city's 2022 financial report. Tim? And that is with Hood and Associates, CPA firm.
Good evening, Mayor and board members. I'm here tonight to briefly go over a PowerPoint presentation about our audit for the year ended December 31st of 2022. Just a little bit about Hood and Associates. Well, let me back up. I want to say we're very honored to be the auditors for the city of Osage Beach, and we take that responsibility very seriously. And I just wanted to let you, the board and the mayor, know that.
Thank you very much.
Just going through the presentation.
I think you have to shoot it that way, maybe? Hold on, Mike's coming. He's our IT person tonight.
Just a little bit about Hood and Associates. We have offices in Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Paul Hood is the sole owner of Hood and Associates, and he's been on an expansion project where he's trying to acquire other CPA firms. So I'm hoping maybe one day he'll acquire a firm here in Osage Beach. And if he does, I'm going to ask for a transfer down here. Every 3 years, we have to go through what we call a peer review, and that's where another CPA will come in and review our work papers, our reports, And we have been awarded the highest rating given as a result of our latest peer review. And we're also members of several different organizations. I'm not going to name them all off, but they're up there on the screen. As far as the scope of our audits, it included the annual comprehensive financial report, which is this book here. And because the city had more than $750,000 of federal awards, we had to also perform a single audit. And that's what we did, is we just made sure the city was in compliance over expenditures of federal awards. And we selected one major program, and I believe it was a MoDOT grant at one of the airports. And we didn't have any findings as a result of our single audit. And I think that was a separate report that we issued, so you should have that report as well. As far as our responsibilities, we are to conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, the government auditing standards, and the uniform guidance. The uniform guidance has to do with the compliance requirements related to the single audit. Secondly, we have to plan and perform our audit to obtain reasonable, not absolute assurance that the basic financial statements are free of material misstatements. And lastly, we report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance with laws and regulations. The Auditing Standards Board of the AICPA recommends that we communicate the following matters to the governing body. As far as illegal acts, none came to our attention as a result of performing our audit procedures. Changes in the significant accounting policies. During the year, the city implemented Government Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 87, which has to do with leases, during 2022. And you can find more information in the annual reports about that implementation. Yeah, I believe it's in notes 5 and 7. As far as any difficulties or disagreements with management, we didn't have any. And we had full access to the books and records. The financial and compliance audit addresses 3 basic questions. First is, are the financial statements free of material misstatement? And we have issued an unmodified opinion, or a clean opinion, that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. Secondly, are the internal controls over financial reporting adequately designed and operating effectively? We did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be a material weakness. And lastly, did the City of Osage Beach comply in all material respects with finance-related laws and regulations? And we noted no compliance with the finance-related laws and regulations that govern the city's operations. We also issued a required communications letter. I believe you should have a copy of that. This contains suggestions for best practices and possible improvements in internal control noted during the audit. A couple of the suggestions that are in that letter, one deals with key employees and cross-training. And secondly, there's future accounting pronouncements, specifically There's, I believe it's GASB 96, which will be effective this next fiscal year, that has to do with subscription-based information technology arrangements, which may affect the city. And lastly, we just, Hood and Associates, we appreciate the opportunity to serve as auditor for the city of Osage Beach. And I would like to put a shout out to Carrie and the finance department, because they make our job a whole lot easier. And I'd be happy to attempt to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Does the board have any questions? Alderman Rucker.
I have a question and a comment. First of all, my comment would be that I did go through the audit. Didn't read every page, but I will say I read about half of it. It was very, very easy to read, especially for a person like me who's not a good reader. It was very interesting. It was very fact-finding, factual, a lot of good information. I'm a little upset with myself because there was things I found in there. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. I don't remember seeing that on a previous audit. So I don't know that it wasn't there on previous ones, or if it just was more difficult for me to read and gather that material on different audits. But it was very easy to read, very easy to understand, and I applaud your organization who put this together, made it very easy to understand for the layperson. So I thank you for that. My comment to you is, as it relates to specifically page 61, I know it is your responsibility to give a report on debt ratio of the community at large. In other words, it's because of my background, I understand what this report's all about. You take the whole geographical area and you give a report on how much debt the city has as compared to what other ones have, and et cetera. My difficulty with your report here is I don't understand why you are basing it on the things that you're basing it on. You're basing it on population, on square miles, and I don't understand why you're not basing it on assessed valuation, because you would be able to take the assessed valuation of the whole geographical area, because even though the city does not charge taxes, property taxes, we do have assessed valuation that is provided to the city each and every year. So what our assessed valuation is could be compared to the other taxing entities that have bonded indebtedness. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the standard way that it has to be done, if there's some GASB law now that says you got to do it that way. But for my little world, assessed valuation comparison for this kind of report would have been extremely more valuable than what the differences that you used.
Yeah, I think this is suggested by our governing body and the GFOA. I don't know, Carrie, can you speak to this at all?
Yeah, this is prepared by staff, and I can delve into it and see if we have options to use other.
If we do, I think the assessed valuation gives you a cleaner overview and a cleaner picture of what this portion of the audit is supposed to do, you know, from the perspective of the indebtedness that the area is taking on.
Sure, revisit the rules and see if we have any flexibility.
I believe,
If we do,
Carrie,
it'd be nice.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the assessed valuation is in one of these other stats.
But it doesn't determine the same,
But we can definitely
yeah, I'll
look,
at that.
well, I appreciate your suggestion, and we can look into that and see if we can add that information.
That's all I have, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Alderman Osteen.
Yes, unlike my counterpart, Alderman Rucker, I did not read the majority of the report. But I did scan through it. I did have one question for you. This is maybe perhaps something that Carrie can do, but in your recommendations for the city, you discussed cross-training. And I want to know if we could dial down on that as far as specific positions, departments, who basically would be.
That was my meeting with the auditor. So I met with Mr. Hood. I apologize, the other gentleman, I met with him and we discussed, it's kind of just your annual check status of everything. And so that was one of the conversations we had. He was not drilling down on any specific department or any specific person or individual. It was just a lot of cities deal with this, especially seeing that our average tenure of our, if you look at the average tenure of our supervisor or management positions is a little different than overall. And when you see that kind of trend, that's just the natural progression of that tenure. When it goes up, eventually it goes down.
Well, maybe topic for the conversation, especially for those departments that have very limited staff, like Carrie's staff or
And I explained to him that this is
Carrie
a
Patterson, that basically are one-man shows, some of them, but
heated
yes.
conversation at budget and, understanding how you do that. So the short answer is no, it was not on any particular department or any current issue or anything. It was just cities of our smaller size, and I know it doesn't seem like we're a small city, but we are a small city with small, a smaller employee print, so.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Ross.
Just real quick, great job, Carrie, and thank you.
I'm sorry.
I just said great job and thank you.
Oh, appreciate it very much.
One question, Mr. Mayor.
I would add one last thing is, I know you probably don't read through this whole report, but if you wanted to get a good highlight of what went on with the city during the year, I recommend you read, it's the MD&A section, and it's pages 4 through 11. It has a lot of good information.
All right. Alderman Hoffman.
I was just wondering how long the process took from inception to completion.
The whole audit? I'd say in terms of hours, it was somewhere between 200 and 250 hours. That was probably over a 2 or 3 month period.
Okay.
And then plus staff hours.
We usually wait till January closes out and usually start in February and are working off and on through June, about 5 months.
We do a lot of the work remotely, but we spent 2 or 3 days here on site.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Carrie, do you have anything to add?
They're a great team to work with, kept us on our toes. Tim likes to throw us some curveballs here and there, but
All right.
good to work with.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Bill 23-46, and it's ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, adopting an amendment to the zone. I'm sorry? Yes.
I would like to recuse myself from this
Yes.
item before we get started.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
And you even reminded me.
I know.
All right. All right, I'm going to start that over. Bill 23-46, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, adopting an amendment to the zoning map of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri by rezoning a parcel of land as described as rezoning case number 421. This is the first reading. City Planner Carrie Patterson, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. This request was actually postponed from the last meeting, so it is being brought back up in new business. I won't go through everything, as I know the only one who wasn't here that's currently on the board was Alderman Osteen, and he got to sit through my spiel at the Planning Commission, so unless he wants me to, I think I'll go ahead and hit the highlights of this one. But the basics of what we're asking here, what's being asked by the applicant, is an amendment to their planned unit development that will allow the property to give half an acre from the proposed commercial spot to the condominiums for the purposes of an additional 8 units, going from 139 to 147 condominium units, with 2 acres remaining for the construction of a 250-seat restaurant and a 72-unit hotel combination facility. We took this to the planning commission at their meeting in May, and they forwarded to the board with a recommendation to approve.
All right, comments or questions from the board? Alderman Rucker.
Yes, I have a couple of them. First of all, I was the one that requested this to be tabled. One, because I wanted Mr. Osteen to be here, because he was a representative, and there was some discussion that I felt maybe he could shed some light on. Secondly, I had some questions within my own self that I wanted to get clarified. And also there were some comments that were made at the last meeting that I want to comment on as well. First of all, there were some comments made in reference to the fact that it wasn't understood how the city could tell them what they could and couldn't do with their property. It's my understanding that the planning and zoning document that we have that lays out the city eons ago was established in some kind of a format where property is looked at, the city's looked at, and somebody decides, well, this should be commercial, this should be residential, and there's public hearings, there's public input, and there's maps made, and there's a guideline, and here's what we think the city should look like. And that area is divided into commercial and residential and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's basically maybe not all the nuts and bolts, but that's basically what happened. So at some point, elected officials, along with the input from the public, decided what that land should be used for, which was residential. Now, over the course of time, somebody can come in and ask that to be changed. You're looking at me strange, Gary. Am I
You're way off.
Huh?
You're way off. I don't know where you're coming from on that one. That particular piece of property has been recommended for commercial from 1984 and is the same it's recommended for commercial in the newest comp plan, which is 2006.
Right, well,
okay?
that plan came from where? That's what I just said. Didn't that plan?
Well, I guess where I'm disagreeing with you is that you said that at some point it was recommended for residential.
No, I meant property out there is either I'm sorry.
Okay, I misunderstood you then, but
no.
Yes, our comprehensive plan, the most recent was 2006.
Right. So what I'm trying to get at is the public had input into that, and some board up here had that. So the city, there's not just some city officials here saying you can't use that property for anything but commercial or anything but residential. This is something that there was a lot of input into and a lot of opportunity for people to voice their opinion on. Now this piece of property is commercial, and now they've come and asked for us to change that to residential. And that's where we're at now. My concern or my issue with it is when they did that, they promised, and that's all we can say, they promised they were going to put a hotel and they promised they were going to put a restaurant there. And that's not a written agreement. We can't make them hold their feet to it. The only thing we can hold the feet to is the fact that that piece of property, that 2 acres, has to be commercial, unless they come to a future board and ask to change it again. Am I on the right page, Carrie?
That you're absolutely right about. Yeah, that's the basics of what is there today was what this board approved 2 years ago that allowed the 139 condo units and 2.5 acres of commercial land that was going to be set for, by their own application, a hotel with 72 units and a restaurant with 250 seats. And at that time, we actually built it into the permitted uses to allow a combo building if someone came and wanted to build a combo building. It wasn't required to be 2 separate facilities. The basics of it now is that they are, basically coming to the board saying we are for sure going to build a combination facility that has the hotel and the restaurant under one roof within one facility, and are requesting an additional 1/2 acre onto the condo property, which will allow them to build an additional 8 units because it increases that density.
So if this is approved, you're telling me then they cannot build a separate hotel and a separate restaurant, or just build a restaurant, or just build a hotel? They have to do a combination?
Yes. That is what they are telling us they are going to do.
Okay, but, so I didn't realize that we could hold their feet to the fire that much.
We can with a PUD, but they're the ones that are telling us that they are doing that. Okay, we're not telling them that it has to be that. We're not telling them, initially when they came with a hotel and a restaurant, we didn't say you have to do a hotel and a restaurant. We said that we want a portion of it to remain commercial, and let's work together to try to figure out what will be best for the development and for the city to put on that piece. Initially, they had 2.5 acres, and it fundamentally could have allowed for separate facilities, but with the way the development has played out, I don't see any way that we can get 2 separate facilities with the required parking and the required structure on there with what they have left. And the current piece of property that they're going to put the hotel restaurant facility on is currently the construction staging area for the condominium development.
So we are a couple years away before we're going to see anything there.
Could be, or it could be tomorrow. I mean, it's the way that we do zoning, okay? When the board, when the planning commission, when myself looks at zoning, okay, it is not ever about anything other than, is the use being requested for the property a good and appropriate use for the property? It's not about, it's 100% about that use. Is the use good? It is not about the applicant or the applicant's, the people who buy it from the applicant's ability to perform that use on the property. It is this a good use for the property that we are looking at? Okay? And from that perspective, that is why I brought it to the planning commission with a recommendation to approve, because like I said at the last meeting, if this had been what they had come with last time that this was approved, I would have recommended approval of it at that time as well. Okay? The fact now that they have come and upped it a little bit doesn't change the fact that I believe that the condominiums and the addition of the hotel restaurant facility being in one, I believe that's a good use and an appropriate use for that piece of property, the entire 10 acres. So that's where I came with my recommendations.
Thank you.
Hey, Kerry?
Yes, sir.
I always like to dumb things down. So looking at this as somebody that's on the Planning and Zoning Commission, here's the way I see it. Correct me where I'm wrong. Originally, they wanted a hotel and a 250-unit restaurant, correct? Person restaurant. And now, they're still going to do that, but rather than 2 separate structures, it's 1 structure. Is that pretty close to?
That is what they're contending that they're going to do. Yes.
So that's why in the planning and zoning, it's the same thing. They just can't fit the hotel and the restaurant in the property. So to do both, they're just going to combine the 2. So I'm all for this, but I'm not voting on this tonight, but that's just, dumb it down for me, that's basically what it is in my eyes. Other comments from the board? Alderman Osteen.
Okay, so from the planning and zoning standpoint, since our representative for the aldermen on that board, when this was presented, it seemed fairly simple requests. Based on its merits, didn't think twice about it. In hindsight, though, I started second-guessing my opinion from a P&Z standpoint, moving to the board standpoint here. Anytime you value real estate or commercial property, one of the things you do on that appraised valuation is state, is this the highest and best use of that property? That phrase keeps sticking in my head. Is this the highest and best use of that property for the city, or is it the highest and best use of that property for the developer? Obviously, this is the highest and best use of that property for the developer, with real no caveats or advantages for the city on this. Once again, we can't hold their feet to the fire on the development of the hotel and the restaurant. I mean, that's all just, I want to say handshake agreements, but that's what was presented at that time. Doesn't mean plans can't change like most of them do. But once again, I've got mixed feelings about this, once again, upon further review and really asking myself, to what benefit is this to the city to allow an additional 8 units to be added to this complex? That's all I have to say.
Well, I mean, one thing that I would say, you know, an additional 8 units is an additional 8 customers for all of our services, an additional, you know, property tax capacity for the other services, obviously not us, okay? What I will tell you is that greatest and best use is certainly only good as long as you can put something on, you know, the piece of property. What I would tell you is, you know, is there a use of that piece of property that could possibly garner more money for that 2 or that 2.5 acres? Possibly. What I will tell you is a hotel and a restaurant on the same property as a condominium development is better than having, you know, a tire company or something like that. Okay, so the ideology when we were sitting down was to keep some ability for the city to make money 20 years in the future over just having customers, water and sewer customers in a, you know, 150 unit condominium development. But from the applicant's perspective, okay, when we start talking about value, the value of that 2 acres is still what could have been an additional 40 units of condominiums. Okay, so now that 2 acres cannot be put into their density to allow them to do, instead of 140 units, they could have done 180, okay? With however much they're selling for, and I don't know, it's probably more than I could pay, but however much they're selling for, an additional 40 units to them has great value. I will also say that outside of whether they can perform the hotel and the restaurant or not, having a hotel and a restaurant on that property that is 72 units and 250 seats provides value by way of sales tax to the community in 20 years, but also doesn't provide negative impact to either the condos or the hotel and the restaurant because of the existence of the two. They actually work together. You know, people come to visit folks in condos, they can stay in the hotel, and you can walk up the hill and, you know, go to breakfast or whatever in the restaurant. That was the ideology behind it. And the basics of it is, you know, I'll be straightforward with you, is when the applicant came in and spoke to me about making the entire piece of property a condominium development to the tune of plus 180 units, I told him right there, standing in the foyer of this building, that was not something that I could recommend approval of to the Board of Aldermen. Because in 2006, man, I'm going to go back in some history here. In 2006, we took condominiums out of the general commercial zone so that the city could have some say on general commercial pieces of property becoming commercial resort or commercial residential, which is what a condominium is considered. Okay. The ideology that we brought to the board at that time is coming to fruition. And you can say that, and I'm comfortable saying that, because we have a nearly $400 million development going, you know, we're working on across the channel on one of the pieces of property that we wanted to protect the most. Topsider, the hopefully soon-to-be Oasis property, the Lake Chateau property, and the Hammonds piece of property. All zone commercial, and when we took that out of C1, condos out of C1, that allowed the city to say, we're going to be here and we're going to hear it before we give up the future sales tax of those 4 pieces plus anything else to condominiums, which we won't get sales tax off of. So that was the basics behind it. That's why they came in, you know, with something that was a little bit different, because basically I told them I wouldn't recommend that, you know, for approval to the planning commission or this board. They came in with something that hopefully, if they perform, and there is a hotel and a restaurant on that piece, you know, 20 years from now, we're still making money off of that, along with the money that we're getting from the condos. And yes, when it all comes down to it, it's good for the city to have value on anything that we have in our community. But it's still most important that value goes to the private property owner who's trying to make their money off of it too. So, with that, Mayor, I don't know if the applicants, they seem to have their team here. I don't know if they have something that they would like to say to the board. But unless there's anything else, I'll shut up.
Would you like to comment?
Just briefly.
Sure.
My name's Aaron Ellsworth. I'll sign the list here. I'm getting used to this procedure here. I just want to make one point, and I represent Topsider Development. The application for the amendment is to change the 2.5 acre parcel that was initially reserved for the hotel and restaurant to a 2 acre parcel. The half an acre, and I have the engineer here today. Last time I probably didn't articulate it that well, but the half acre parcel is the wall, the rock face that separates the commercial from the condo. So it can't really be developed as condominiums and it can't be developed as commercial. It really is a half acre tract that is really that rock wall. So, and Lee has the plans on that. So the other benefit, and I always look at it from a condo development because I set up condos, is that this rock wall, if it's owned in the commercial, whoever owns the commercial development and they are developing or whatever, there could be subsidence, there could be other issues. And I really feel like the condo association should be able to maintain that rock face and be able to address those issues. I think it should have been part of the condominium at first, to go to Mr. Patterson's point, that if this was presented with that half acre, and it would have been a 2 acre commercial tract, and we had whatever the extra half acre where we knew this rock face was going to be in the initial plan in the condo, I think the board would have said yes. It really doesn't change the potential for the city's tax revenue, because this property, that half acre, can't be developed as condos and it can't be part of the commercial. And Mr. Schumann's here if you guys want to see the plan a little bit better so you can understand where this half acre is. The plan still hasn't changed. This hotel, restaurant, that restriction remains forever until somebody buys the land, or my client still intends to do the hotel, restaurant. Somebody buys it, they may come in and say, well, before we buy it, city, will you accept a different use of the property? And that will always be your right to do that. And that restriction remains, and your potential for tax revenue remains. That half acre does change, but it really is unusable for either person. And I see the benefit better for the condos themselves as an association to be able to control that when there is development. And that is, if you guys would like to see the plans, then Lee can bring those up to give you guys a little bit of idea where that half acre is. I don't know what's in your packet.
They have it. They have all of that stuff in the packet. Can I just ask of your team?
Yeah.
I don't care who addresses it.
Sure.
Can somebody just get a sincerity check on the hotel restaurant? Can we have somebody talk about this?
I'll tell you what I know about it. I've talked to Mr. Dabbs, who's the principal, the guy who got the project started. This is Mr. Locke, also an owner of the developer, and he is in charge of the construction. I've spoken with Mr. Dabbs. The idea is a hotel restaurant. Obviously, it's in one building now with a restaurant on top. We see that in a lot of cities and stuff now. But Mr. Locke can tell you about his conversations. His intention.
Yeah. My intentions had always been to do a hotel restaurant. I never said I would do it first. I have to build the condos down below. I needed a temporary road to get people down there until I get around. To redo that road, I needed a state permit. I do have that now. We're going to redo that road this fall after Labor Day, because we're going to be cutting out on the highway. I'm using it for stages. I got 4 semis sitting up there. Y'all see. When we get done with the 4th and get into the 5th, we got people that's acquired about it, but we haven't pushed because we need it. If we don't have it done of the winter of 24 into 25, me and another of the owners are going to develop it. That's always been my plan. It hasn't changed. I will complete it at that time if we don't have it sold. That's
Very good.
I mean, it's going to happen.
I have a question.
Alderman Hoffman.
Intend, probably, we're going to do it. There's nothing contractually holding you to that, correct?
There's not.
I mean, you could just sit, there's nothing contractually holding you to
No, there's
developing
not.
it or to selling it or anything,
There's
correct?
Yes.
But
But I
you
think-
could sit there and look at it for 20 years and build these condos and never develop it, correct? You're right, it could have. But we're not dealing with that issue, we're dealing with this
But
issue.
I have been building here at the city since 1982, and I think Ron, Kerry, or anybody's been here a long time, we have completed everything we have said we would do. We have never not walked away. I have no intentions.
Well, I'll just be direct. I
No, I
can't
understand.
support, it, to me, it looks like one deal's not done, and you're asking for a better deal, and this deal hasn't been completed yet. And to me, the right thing to do would be to get something in writing saying that this hotel's
No.
going up.
No.
And then
No.
come back to us and ask
No.
for more stuff.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what,
Zoning doesn't work that way, Alderman Hoffman.
Okay.
Everyone who comes in here and asks for a rezoning, I don't care if it's a PUD or if it's to go from agriculture to multifamily residential, comes in and says, hey, we've got a use, we would like to use this for this, but there is absolutely nothing that goes in that rezoning that says that it has to be done. Okay? That is not what zoning is. Okay, please do not get this confused with what the TIF process or any kind of financing process.
I never
The
brought up
city-
the TIF process.
The city, no, but the city does not have any money in this deal. Okay, we're not putting anything forward. That's where, you start getting contracts to make sure that things done and performance standards, those kind of things. We don't, within zoning, that doesn't happen on any of them that come through. Okay? I'll use you for an example. You just got a piece of property that your family owned, got rezoned. There wasn't a contract that said you had to perform exactly what you said that you were going to do on there when it got rezoned. Okay?
Correct.
It's no different in this situation. Okay? There is, whether it's 2 acres or 2.5 acres of the applicant's property that is encumbered by this, there is a substantial amount of highway frontage, commercial property of the owner's property that is encumbered. It can't be built for anything but a hotel restaurant unless somebody comes in and says they've got a better idea, which, man, it could happen.
does it change the rezoning process at all if it's a combined restaurant and hotel, or if it's one or the other? I mean, I kind of don't see these two things as, like, why are they lumped in here together?
Why is what lumped in here together?
Well, the combination of making it into a hotel restaurant as one unit, does that?
It's only a change in their PUD, because at this point, the amount of property that they have left, they can't get 2 separate facilities in there, whether the board approves this or they don't. You're not going to have a separate restaurant and a separate hotel. It's not gonna happen. They don't have the property. The location of that wall, the way that it ended up having to go in, restricted that piece of property enough to where it's just not going to happen. Okay, so the basics of it is, and I'll lay it out straight for you, as somebody who has looked at a few site plans and knows the game, you're either gonna get this kind of development with the additional 8 units, or you're gonna get this development without them. So, the board can approve this request and they can build the other 8 units, and at some point, they'll either have, the restaurant hotel, or you'll have the condominium development without those 8 units, and hopefully a restaurant and a hotel. Again, unless somebody comes in and says, hey, we've got a better plan for that 2 acres. What does the city think about this? We would like to build retail facility or something of that type. But at this point, that's not something we're seeing either.
This is the first reading. So if I could make a recommendation, if there is any questions or comments that you still have in your mind and you need them answered, I would suggest you consider voting yes for the first reading, get your factual information together, form a better opinion for the second reading, but I would hate to see this die because we're not fully informed or we don't fully understand. So, anything else you'd like to add? Or any other comments or questions? Any other questions from the board? Alderman Rucker? No?
No question, comment.
Comment?
I fully understand what's going on here, and I make a motion to approve.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Alderman Rose. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Osteen?
No.
Alderman Rose? Alderman Rose?
Oh, yes.
Alderman Ross?
No.
Alderman Rucker?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
No.
All right. Bill dies. All right, next we have Bill 23-55, an ordinance of the
Excuse me.
city.
Can we get Alderman Schuman in?
I'm sorry, yes, yes. Thank you. All right, next we have Bill 23-55, an ordinance of the city of Osage Beach, Missouri, repealing section 140.050, sales tax holiday, and repealing ordinance 20.34, referring the decision concerning opting out of the state-imposed back-to-school sales tax holiday to the Board of Aldermen each year. This is the first reading. City Administrator Gina Woods, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. Effective this year, the Missouri State Legislature made changes involving several sales tax holidays. However, we just had ordinances addressing the back-to-school sales tax holiday. In short, they took the decision away from the municipal government. Therefore, when our Chapter 140 that outlined our internal procedures and the board's decision-making at a certain time is now null and void, so I'm recommending that we just repeal and remove.
All right, comments or questions from the board?
So,
Alderman Rucker.
if I understand it correctly, the state legislators, again, have stuck their nose into local business or local government in an area they have no business. They have enough to take care of at the state legislators, and I hope there's some of them out that are listening, because they have enough to do to try to get our state highway roads taken care of, and I could go on, and if they just keep their nose out of local government and let us make those decisions, it would be more appropriate. Thank you, I just wanted to state that.
All right. Anyone else? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Alderman Ross. Do I have a second?
I'll second it because our hands are tied on this one. We have to.
Alderman Osteen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have Bill 23-56, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, adding section 140.015, sales tax imposed on retail sales of adult use marijuana, directing the application of the sales tax revenue to be collected for the purpose of funding parks and recreation and public service, safety service. Such sales tax to be at a rate of 3% on all retail sales of adult use marijuana within the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, which are subject to taxation pursuant to Article 14, Section 2.365 of the Missouri Constitution. First reading. Gina Woods, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. Upon the voters' approval of our ballot issue question back in April, this is the section that just outlines that additional or 3% sales tax along with our other taxes that we have outlined. It mirrors the ballot language and along with a couple other statements. So it's a new section 140.015.
All right. Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
So moved.
Alderman Rose. Do I have a second? Alderman Rucker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading carries. Next, we have Bill 23-57, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a 3-year janitorial service agreement with Woodley Building Maintenance for an amount not to exceed $77,220. This is the first and second reading. Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. We bid this out for a second, for actually a third time this year, and we opened those bids in May. We only received the one bid, the one that you have in front of you. The bid is for $77,220 per year. This is significantly more than what we had previously budgeted for this service. If you look, I think it's on page 440 of your packet, you'll find a spreadsheet that I created. All the way over to the far right in the variance column, you'll see that there are some possible budget amendments that are going to be required for this. I don't know yet whether they're going to be required because depending upon how quickly they can find the staff to get it started, I'd like to start them on July 1st. And if I can do that, then the budget amendment will be needed. If for some reason they have to delay that because they can't find the staff and they can't start for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then it's going to even out and we may not need the budget amendment. So obviously, Gina will be back with a budget amendment possibly if it's needed. I have checked the references of Woodley Building Maintenance. This is a little bit of a different company than what we've used before. This is a professional building maintenance company. They have several buildings in Jefferson City. They have buildings all over central Missouri. So it's a little bit different than what we've had before, a little bit more of a corporate style building maintenance. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Just one last comment I want to make. I've had several conversations with Alderman Osteen about janitorial services at the park. Alderman Osteen has asked me to look into having the janitorial service extend into the concession stand. Obviously, when I bid this out, I didn't include any of that, so I can't really do that to start with. But as I had told Alderman Osteen on the phone, my intention is to work with them and have them go through that, and then if we need to make an amendment to this contract later in the year to accommodate that, we will, and I will certainly update the board on that when we get to that. I do recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mike. Comments or questions from the board? Alderman Ross.
So, Mike, I see that their closest office is in Columbia. When we checked their references, were there any references that were closer than Columbia to us, and if so, where were they?
Jefferson City. They've got a couple in Jefferson City.
So that's as close as they are.
And for what it's worth, they are hiring locals. So the people that will be cleaning for us will live in the lake area.
Okay, assuming they can find them, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're not sure when they're going to be able to start because they're not going to hire those folks until they get the contract. Is that the idea?
I was told with a pretty high level of confidence that they felt like they could get the people by July 1st.
Interesting. Okay. And then I'll just say this, we've already talked about this, but as far as janitorial services at the park, at the concession stand, I don't know of any restaurant company in the world that has a cleaning service for their kitchen, okay? And if that's what we need, so be it. But I guess we'd be very unique and such, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Agree to disagree.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question.
Alderman Hoffman.
If we're going to open that up to the concession stand being contracted out to a private company and us not run it anymore, that's down the road. We're thinking that might happen, correct? Would we be able to take this contract back if we do end up going that route?
I mean, obviously that would change things, Alderman Hoffman, and we'll just kind of have to see how that plays out. But you are correct. I mean, obviously, if we decided to contract out concessions, then that would be the responsibility of whoever we hired to do that.
Okay.
Not our company.
Right. I just wanted to make sure about that. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to clarify my conversations regarding the concession stand, it wasn't to hire a janitorial service to work full-time at the concession stand. It was to get them on an occasional basis for deep cleaning because, the concession stand is run by seasonal employees. They're namely high school students. Not to say that the concession stand is in disarray or is filthy and dirty, but I thought it would probably be in our best interest as a public-facing facility for the city that we had some professionals once in a while go in there and do some deep cleaning. Just wanted to clarify that.
I would second your statement.
All right, any other comments or questions on this bill right now?
Hurry up and pass it before they change their mind.
Any other comments or questions on this bill? If not, do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading carries. Second reading, same bill, 23-57, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a 3-year janitorial service agreement with Woodley Building Maintenance for an amount not to exceed $77,220. Any additional comments or questions on this? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Rose.
I'll second.
Alderman Osteen. Roll call, please.
Alderman Schuman?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen?
Yes.
Alderman Morose?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Rucker?
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Moving on to Resolution 2023-02, a resolution of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, supporting the application for MoDOT's Rural Statewide Transportation Alternative Program funding for the Columbia Avenue Sidewalk Project. Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. This is a resolution to support the 2023 TAP grant window that's going to be opening in July. As you know, we were awarded the TAP grant for the Highway 42 sidewalk project. Design of that project is moving forward currently as budgeted for the 2023 budget year. The missing piece in the middle of this is Columbia Avenue. We have connected all the way down to Mace Road if you take the bridge out of the picture. And if we connect Columbia, then it would connect everything all the way down to the school from all of those neighborhoods along the parkway, as Gina has kind of alluded to in some of what she has stated there. Additionally, again, it's going to score very high because it is kind of the last piece, right, in that whole connecting piece that we have there that kind of surrounds Hy-Vee and the Pruitt's Point area. If we were to move forward with this is an 80-20 grant. The engineering would happen in 2024 alongside the actual construction for the Highway 42 grant, which is already budgeted. And then in 2025, we would have the construction of the final piece there, and that would all be complete, assuming we were to get the grant. So just asking for the support so that when I fill out the application, I can add that information in, and fingers crossed, hopefully we get the grant. I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
All right, anybody have any comments or questions for Mike? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion approved.
Alderman Schuman, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, resolution passes. Last item for business is another resolution, 2023-03, a resolution of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, supporting the application for the Department of Transportation Safer Streets for All grant. Again, Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. This is a resolution for another grant, and I do have some representatives from the branches of the lake and Magic Dragon Trails. Stacy Pertle is here. She's going to talk a little bit about some of the details of the grant here real quick, but just to kind of give you a summary here, this is kind of our second attempt for a grant to kind of move the Trails Initiative forward. The first one, as you know, was the Connecting Communities grant. Gina talks about it extensively in her notes. And we just didn't get it, you know what I mean? So we were passed over. I will tell you that Stacy and I sat through about an hour and a half long process with the state to kind of refine, get some answers why we didn't get those grants and why we were passed over for that. And Stacy and I are using a lot of what we learned there to kind of try a little bit, to kind of get this grant, use a lot of what we learned. So we did benefit from that process, and we're hoping to kind of use that in the new process. This one is going to be a little different. This one is less about connecting the community and more about adding more safety to our roads. It will require, and I think Stacy's going to go into this a little bit, it will require that eventually we make some kind of statement about how, what goals we want to create as far as safer streets and avoiding fatalities and those kind of things in the lake area. That'll come down the road if we get the grant. The 20% or the local share, we are going for a $1 million grant just like we did the last time. So the local share would be $200,000. Of that $200,000, Branches for the Lake and Magic Dragon Trails has kind of verbally agreed to contribute $25,000 to $50,000 of that. So essentially a quarter of that, or up to a quarter of that, in addition to assisting with grant management, assisting with helping us do a lot of the legwork for collecting some of the data that would be required if the grant is awarded. So again, it's kind of our second attempt. I'll let Stacy take over and kind of give her summary now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Good evening.
Thank you, members of the board. Yes, this is a Safer Streets for All grant that is from the USDOT. It's a federal grant. This is the second round. Last year, they were not even able to award as much money as they had allotted, so, for that year. So we're hoping that it's still kind of a well-kept secret and that we will have a shot. We did learn a lot from the debriefing that we did. A lot of it was on diversity, and Mike spoke to that they wanted to see how we would go out and reach those underserved communities. And that's where Branches for the Lake will really play in as far as doing some surveying and footwork at senior citizen centers, with OATS writers, with the hospital administration and patients and clientele to really reach out to see what kind of service needs they need. We do, as far as when you're looking at the statistics for roadway fatalities in Osage Beach proper, there were 5 fatalities in the last 5 years, which actually puts us kind of median if you're just looking at the raw numbers. But when you normalize that per 100,000, that actually would come up, if we were a city of 100,000, that would be 20 fatalities within Osage Beach per year. And then based on the numbers that Chief Davis gave us for serious injuries in Osage Beach, there's 37 in that 5-year period, and that actually scores us very high. And when you normalize that for 100,000, that would be 150 serious injury accidents a year. So we should score very well on that portion of it just because of that. The USDOT is looking at this as a vision 0. So your statement would have to be of support would be that you would be working to 0 fatalities within the community. And part of that plan is that, it's not all about just human error. A lot of times, we just think of traffic fatalities as human error, whether it's a DUI or a kid not looking both ways when they cross the street, or a bicyclist not having proper attire to be safe. But so those would be part of the things that we would be going out and doing education on as Branches for the Lake as well. Part of this is also a demonstration grant. So we are going to write into the grant, or have written into the grant, that we would like funding for putting potentially bolsters for some bike lanes, just as a demonstration to see how that works. Because part of Magic Dragons is we would like to see the parkway businesses be able to be accessed by walking, biking. Now, some of that may be on the street right away, but with a demonstration project, we may be able to say, okay, no, it's better for it to go behind businesses to be safer. So that's one of the demonstration projects. It's also putting cameras in city vehicles, so we would get some funding for that to be able to better audit traffic counts. When we worked with Chief Davis, obviously at the schools and in school loading and unloading times, there are a lot of higher incidents of accidents. So we've also written in there as a demonstration some additional traffic lighting and signage to help slow people down. Part of it would also be to potentially change the speed limit on the parkway itself, reducing that, because if you're going to have combined bicycle, pedestrian traffic there with the bolsters, 45 miles an hour is not what is recommended by city planners and engineers. It's 35 miles when you're doing multimodality transportation. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Questions for Stacy? Alderman Ross.
Yeah, Stacy, just for clarity, how many different other cities are involved in the overall plan right now, or the current concept?
Currently, there were 154 small rural communities.
No. I mean for this plan, the Magic Dragon Trail.
Oh, for this plan?
Right.
Actually, it's really just Osage Beach and Camden County in the current master plan that we have. Now,
So it doesn't get into Lake Ozark?
No, not at this point.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Yep, too expensive for us to go that far.
That's fine. I was
Yeah.
just curious. All right. Thank you.
Now, eventually, that we want to go all the way around the lake. And we would hope that we could even tie in at some point to the Katy Trail. The state of Missouri, in our opinion, could be the biking capital of the world because you've already got the Katy Trail, tie in the Rock Island line, and bring them all down here to the lake.
That's where you need that pedestrian bridge.
Well, and that would be part of this planning, would be the pedestrian bridge, for sure.
Yes, right?
Yes.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Keep trying.
And I
Yeah,
think
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
Keep plugging away at it.
Yep.
What, if I could just make one more comment, I do want to call the board's attention to Gina's comments. She put a lot of comments in here related to budgeting and the financial future of some of this, and I just want to make sure that you guys review that before you make your decision on how to vote for the resolution. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate it. All right, do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Everybody's quiet. Motion to approve.
Alderman Osteen, do I have a second? Alderman Hoffman, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, resolution passes. Thank you. All right, next we're gonna move on to department updates. Gina Woods, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board, a reminder, you have your all-day planning session Tuesday, the 27th, which is not next week, but the following week, before our next meeting, regular meeting, we get an extra week in there. It is going to be at Margaritaville. I got the final room layout and all that good stuff. I'll be getting an agenda out next week. I'll probably send you like a draft just so you want to peek at it. I'm going to try to keep it overall, that way you have room to insert things that may have missed. That way we can just follow through the planning, kind of unhinged, but at your direction, at the same time trying to have some formality to it. But that will be out next week. I'm really, really working on a few things, so I'm pressing for time, but you will get it sometime next week. I know Carrie Bell announced, I know with the audit, I know this is a breather for her, finally get it sent to the state and all that stuff, but I appreciate her help because I'm also working on other things with these new CIDs and TDDs and a little overwhelming, but we're gonna be experts by the time we get the other ones come through. But her and her department did get that award, and I know she mentioned that at one of our last planning sessions, so all the work they do, it is very deserving. So that's really all I have.
All right, Mike Welty.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Just a couple of quick updates on some things. I've got several things going on with design guidelines, everything from water sewer transportation changes to streetlight changes. I am preparing to send that stuff to Cole for review and then also on to Gina for review. So you're going to see that later this summer. Moving down the list, private street inventory. I'm surprised that Alderman Ross hasn't called me about this one yet. I have some changes that I want to make to the street acceptance ordinances. And as soon as Cole gets back, I'm going to have him review that. As you know, Alderman Ross, we've completed the inventory, but I kind of want to do it all together. So I have all that data ready. Whether we do that, we're going to do that on one of the meetings in July. Which one yet, I'm not sure. It just depends on how quickly I can get that information in front of Cole and Gina and kind of get their blessing to move forward. Sidewalk master plan. Well, you guys just approved a resolution for another sidewalk TAP grant, and we still don't technically have that document approved. So I am working with Dave Christensen right now, hopefully going to meet with him next week to kind of finalize some of the tweaks that we want to make to that document and bring that back to the board to get that blessed later this summer as well. Beyond that, Swiss Village Treatment Plant, I do have 2 quotes for a pilot project to kind of get that started, which I hope to put in front of Gina next week and get that moving. So I don't really have any updates on anything else, whether it be Public Works or for myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. City Clerk, Tara Barrett.
Well, I have good news. We hired someone at the front desk. She starts Monday. Right. I know, huh? So my big challenge is done for the year. I'm good to go.
For the month.
Yeah.
For the
I
month.
said the year. You asked the year, and I told you that
For
was
the
my
month.
challenge.
For the month.
Dang it. All right. So other than that, we're going good. I'm super excited for Monday.
Cool. And Janice is too.
I know she is very excited. She loves me, but she's done. So, all right, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Offshore Day.
We had a new police officer start Monday. He graduated UCM Police Academy last Thursday. And we've got a couple dispatchers or people that have applied for it. So we're trying to get interviews or testing set up for that.
There you go. All right. Building official Ron White.
I have no updates to provide this week.
All right. Airport, Ty
Well done.
Still.
No updates from me.
Well done.
All right. Carrie Bell, you have anything more?
Sure. I think I say this, but this is, I get to be the lead on this report, but it really is a team effort, and your support in giving us quality auditors to work with, and each and every department has worked and put data into this report. So I appreciate all of that, and my team and my department worked really hard on that. I do have a quick question. Would anybody be concerned or feelings hurt if we do not create a paper version going forward? I mean, they're just stacked up and they go in the shredder, but I don't want to just do that without.
If you have an extra one, I'll take it, though.
An extra one?
If you have one that nobody else wants, I will take
I
it.
knew old school was gonna say something. I can see his face, he's like, I gotta have a red pen.
It's right, I know right where it goes, right above the one from the year before, to the right corner of my desk.
I can take you one in 23. I mean, we can put in the order for 23 as well, if you see value in doing that. I think I actually wrote it.
That's all right, you can give it to me later.
I'm gonna give you the one I put notes on. There you go.
I brought a bunch of them over here.
Oh, there you go.
And then on my department list, I did reach out to the county this week for an update on how their audit is progressing. I have not heard back from them. My last update was from February, so if I don't hear from who I reached out to, I'll try some different avenues and try to get a more current update on that. But that is all I have.
All right. Thank you very much. City Planner, Carrie Patterson.
Yes, a couple of things. First, going back to the audit, I can tell you that I don't care what the auditor says. It is not to the city's best interest for me to cross-train into Carrie's field. Second thing, the planning commission met on Tuesday, heard the Oasis amusement park portion of the development. Does not include, obviously, the hotel peninsula or the condos. That will be coming to the board at their first meeting in July. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Very much. All right. Alderman Rucker.
Yes, Mayor, member of the board. I've got a couple things. First of all, I've been on the sewer board for about a year and a half now, and I've not said anything to the board, but I felt that it was time I give you just a little bit of information. Besides me, the mayor is on that board, and city administrator as a member of the board, and also regularly attends those meetings is Carrie Bell, because it's the City of Osage Beach's responsibility to do the treasurer side of that function if you're not aware of it. The secretarial or the clerk side of it is the responsibility of what Lake Ozark does, and so they assign that their city clerk and et cetera. But just to kind of give you highlights, for those of you that maybe have been involved before, or even if you haven't been, just to tell you what's going on right now, we have been working very diligently to look at a capital replacement plan. We recently got the manager of the sewer plant that has provided the board with a lot of the basic data and information. And I volunteered Gina to help because I don't know anything about Excel sheets, but I know about capital planning. But the way I do it is the old yellow pads, and the way Gina does it is the Excel sheets, and that goes a lot quicker. So that's something that we are moving forward on. And basically what we're going to be doing there is being able to develop a chart to where we can take and look at what needs to be replaced down there at the sewer plant, very similar like what we're doing here, and to make sure we're putting enough money away each year to do that. There has been money being put away, but my question when I got onto the board a little over a year ago was, is that enough, or is that not, or is that too much? I'm sure it's probably not too much, but in order to identify that answer to that question, we need to develop this information, and we're working on that. We're also in the process.
I'm out. I got one.
Got to get her all stoked up over there.
I'm dying.
Are you back?
Not on my watch. Also, just want to let you know that one of the other projects that I've delved into with the board is, which shouldn't surprise many of you, is deep dive into the bylaws, deep diving into the procedures for purchasing, and deep diving into just the procedures of the sewer board. A document that I found and delved into, and Gina and I have visited, is kind of one that we're supposed to be dealing with sewer projects that come into the city and how we relate that to the sewer board. And there's some things there that I don't believe we're doing. And it's probably because it's a document that was written and put on a shelf and forgot about. And so I'm not sure we're not doing it because I still don't understand it all, and Gina is in the process of helping with that as well, and as we delve into that. So, and if there's anything you guys care to want to know more in detail about the sewer board, as your representative, I'd be happy to. I know the mayor and Gina, you know, as being a member of the board, and Carrie as being with the treasury report, you know, would be able to keep you informed of it. It just, I don't think we need monthly reports or anything, but again, if you guys have some information you want to know about it, I'll be happy to try to give you that information. And other than that, I want to also tell you that I did a little bit deeper dive into succession planning after our last meeting. And I feel much more comfortable than I did at our last meeting when there was some concern, because most cities our size are smaller. They don't have a succession plan within the organization because we're too small. But what the plan is, which I believe is available, is if we have a problem with the loss of one of our department heads, we share that responsibility with those that are here. And there's also lots of consulting agencies out there that can help us along those ways. So that's what I have found in talking to a couple cities that they do. They try to share within, and then they go out to consulting services in the short term until they can fill the position. So for what it's worth, that makes me feel more comfortable after our last meeting of that discussion. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Schuman.
Mainly just congrats to Carrie and the whole city for the results of the audit. I know with me being in auditing and being under audits with FDIC and all that kind of stuff, it is a very detailed task, and it is, sometimes they can ask a lot. So, but you guys do a great job and continue doing a great job.
All right, thank you. Alderman Hoffman.
A couple things. Second, what you said, fantastic job with that. That's generally going well when you never hear a peep about it. So well done. The memorial that's going up, I'm very intrigued by it. I fully support it. I'm very proud of my city for getting behind it. I would like to make a suggestion that we do some kind of formal launch or opening or ribbon cutting. Not sure if there's a plan for that already, but it would be nice if we did that and invited as many veterans as possible in our community to come down. I think it would mean a lot to them. I know I speak for at least myself on the board and my fellow veteran and our mayor. So, but kudos, fantastic. It's going to look great out there. I want to welcome back Alderman Schuman from her vacation. She has a tumescent glow. She obviously had a good time. And I want to wish our attorney, Cole Bradbury, safe travels out on his vacation. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much. Alderman Osteen.
Just a few things this evening. I do want to remind our department heads, Gina, Mike, that there are quite a few lists or items on our department lists that have due dates stating late June, early July. You may want to address those with the correct individuals, or let us know now if those basically due dates are getting pushed back. Because so many of these things, once again, remain unresolved and they just linger out there continuously. That's why we started saying, let's put some dates to these now and hold people's feet to the fire on this. So just want to remind you, quite a few things on here say July.
Yep.
Yep.
It's not July yet.
Okay. Secondly, I want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July, since we will not be meeting prior to the holiday.
Oh.
And remind everybody, there is a reason why we celebrate that holiday. And the reason that we sit here as representatives of our citizens is one of the reasons we celebrate Independence Day. Last item on my list, and Gina, board group photo.
Yes. I was going to send an email to the mayor and tell what color you want everybody to wear, and I forgot.
Since we won't, obviously, we'll
This
go
is
the
the
first
first
2 months.
I didn't want to bring it up, but I thought maybe it was time.
No, Bob and I talked about it, and I said, well, we haven't had everybody here, but I think the next meeting will. Is there anybody planning to be gone on July 6th? Is everybody, you're iffy?
To be very honest, I will be out of town, and I don't know if I'm going to Zoom in or physically be here. I don't like to attend meetings by Zoom if I have a lot that I want to say, and I don't know what the agenda is yet to determine if I have a lot to say at that meeting. So it's just going to be in St. Louis, so it's not like I'm going to be in, out of state. So I don't know if I'm going to drive back that day and then drive back to St. Louis that night, but that's what I'll have to do.
What about our strategic planning session next week?
That would be a good one, too. Okay.
Is there anybody?
Not next week, it's 27th.
Oh, the 27th,
I was
correct.
like, don't scare me like that, I'm not ready for that.
Well, the week after next.
Okay. Email
Maybe.
to be coming,
Very good.
forthcoming. Yep.
All right. Anything else?
Nope, that's all I had.
All right.
Thank you.
Alderman Rose.
Well, I hope I can talk. Congratulations again, and thank you, Carrie, and all of your staff and everybody that helped you with it. I can't imagine doing that, and just a fantastic job. Thank you. And I also like to put kudos out from our planning session. I just felt that it was very informative, and I thought every department head that was there that explained what they've been doing and what their objectives are and their goals. Anyway, I was very impressed this year. I really was. Compared to several other years, I just thought this year was above and beyond. Yeah, it really was good. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alderman Ross.
Yeah, a few things. One, sewer department, Mike, can you tell me how many openings we have in the sewer department currently?
We've got 2 starting on Monday, which would give us 5, 6.
5 techs.
So we have 3 openings after Monday?
4, I think.
4 after Monday, because we added a position, plus we still have the superintendent, but I'm doing second interviews here upcoming the next couple of days for that position.
Okay, other than the superintendent, I wasn't thinking of that one. So we have 4 openings after Monday.
Yes.
Did we lose anybody in the last 2 weeks?
The last 2 weeks?
Nope.
No, sir.
Okay, I thought we.
Sad we had
I
nothing
thought-
about that. No, I
Sorry,
don't
because
think
I
so.
thought we were closer than
Just
that
outside
2 weeks
that window,
ago, so.
but yeah.
I thought we only had 3
No,
openings
we've
2
had
weeks
those
ago.
3 for a while.
Okay. Road patrol, Mike, how many officer openings do we have?
3.
3.
1 SRO and 2 officers.
And so the person that starts Monday would reduce that to 2?
No, that's including him. No, we actually got 1 in the academy too. Does that count that one?
Okay, so I'm not sure what I just heard.
So there's 1, he started this past Monday.
Oh, this past Monday, I'm sorry, I thought it was this coming.
3, and then we've got 1 in the academy.
One in the
Which would
academy.
take that down to 2.
2.
Okay. And then 911 staff or dispatch staff openings?
6.
Out of 9,
11.
11.
11
We have
positions?
11 positions.
Okay. All right, thanks. Mike, I think it was last meeting somewhere along the line, maybe it was the planning meeting that we had, the objectives. You said that we had tried something new at Sands, and we were optimistic about its effectiveness. I was curious if you had any update on whether or not you guys believe it's become more effective than previous.
I have a comment on that. I was going to bring it up, and then I failed not to. I had a wonderful banana split there last night.
Good.
And sat outside and ate it on purpose, and it was very enjoyable.
We believe that the blower is making a difference. What we don't know is how long the carbon is going to last at this point, so we're still trying to figure that out. It's going to be really important that we stay on top of that and make sure that we replace that carbon timely. And so, fingers crossed, we're still working the problem. We've also met with some other odor control people just trying to figure out if there's anything more we can do, any other hybrid situations that we can look at. So still trying to work the problem, but I do believe we are seeing some optimism, some improvement. Let's hope it lasts as it gets hotter.
Okay. I had an opportunity to talk to Joey Hahn, the owner, on the way in, and I realized that he's not there all the time, but it's the only one he owns, so I'm guessing he's spending some time there. And he hadn't felt like there was any significant difference that, but maybe he's not really registering in his mind when that changed. But I think that I know that you keep in contact with the folks in the boat dealership, I think, across the way. They're just there 8 to 5, if you will. I think that some continued communication with Andy's would probably help that assessment, but that's up to you. So given that fact, have we made any other changes at the Cars property, or do we have any plans for any adjustments, modifications at the Cars property?
We are pricing new blowers with the limited success that we've seen with the one we put on Sands. With the new carbon, we just don't see any reason why we can't duplicate that at a station with a smaller footprint.
Okay.
And so we're pricing that out, and I may have more to bring to the board because obviously this is not something you want to wait for next budget or anything. So as soon as I have that, I'll be talking to Gina about that, and we'll be coming back to the board.
Would that be considered capital, or would that just be R&M?
Definitely capital.
Oh, it's considered capital?
Well, if it's a tangible asset over certain dollars, it's capital.
Okay. The last thing along these lines is I'm going to call it the organizational survey or / employee survey. Have we finalized that survey yet? Not when we're going to do it, but is that survey document finalized yet?
Let me answer that completely tomorrow, because I need
Okay.
to check.
Oh, you want to check with Michael? That's fine.
I do. I need
Good.
to. I know we got on that, and you and I spoke, and then I'll be honest with you, our attention span immediately had to switch somewhere else.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Well, that's on the department list with a mid-June completion date.
sorry?
That's on
Say
the
that again?
department list with a mid-June completion date next to it?
Yeah, it's late.
Okay. Just pointing that
I'm
fact
aware.
out.
And other than happy 4th, if we don't see you at the planning, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. And I really don't have much tonight, believe it or not, but I will tell you this, Alderman Ross, as one who drives up and down Passover Road pretty much daily, I've noticed a big improvement.
Good.
So it's
Good.
been refreshing, so nice job. The only other thing, same, Independence Day. We are not going to see each other for a while. Happy Independence Day. Enjoy the local businesses, enjoy the lake, and be safe out there. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Alderman Rose, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. See how big this packer was. Way off. Thought it was going to be forever.